Now I don't wanna do it, but I ain't afraid to die. Lord knows I ain't perfect, I ain't trying to tell a lie. It's understood and I ain't in all that woulda, coulda, shoulda. Trying to say you want peace, then you burn the.
It was my God's honest that I was all about a non-violent approach, but it seems truth is a non-topic.
Hi guys. Thanks for visiting our channel. Please be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell while you're at it too, so you can get all the updates. You can find us on YouTube, obviously, but for more exclusive and unfiltered content, hit us on our Patreon. The best way to keep our channel alive is to support the Patreon, and you'll get all kinds of exclusive content there that you will not get anywhere else. We're also on Rumble.
We'll take guest suggestions, topic suggestions, all of that.
Yeah, that's where you want to send that shit at, because we aren't going to listen to you otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
We're on Rumble. We're working on our IG right now. It's getting there. We also have a Facebook group. Links to everywhere you can find us, and everything is going to be in the description. And our emails will also be in the description. So if you are interested in coming on the show, you can contact us, or if you want us to come on your show, hit us up.
We're doing an episode, like I told you, on the white collar crime, and part of it is because true crime is kind of making the rounds through like white collar stories. You know, like the girl, the blood girl.
Oh yeah, Elizabeth Holmes.
Yeah, stuff like that. And they've done a million. Yeah, and and Madoff, and all that. So like, I wanted to ask you, because you've been around a lot of these guys, that the thing that these things focus on is their psychological makeup. Like a white collar criminal is different psychologically than other types of. Do you believe that to be true? Like from other types of criminals?
Like, say, like a violent criminal or something like that.
Or a drug dealer?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, all those guys most of them are profit motivated, but I think there's a lot of differences obviously in how they commit their crimes, because you have non-violent offenders, you have violent offenders. A lot of violent crimes have nothing to do with a profit motive,
Right.
So I mean, if you're just focusing on, white collar crime, generally a lot of those guys are in a position of power already, or they're in a privileged position. And I'm not talking some woke bullshit. I'm talking.
No.
Right. We already know.
Yeah.
They work in a company, or they're an executive, or
there's a CEO or something like that.
Yeah. So, and what ends up happening is they see that they have access to, resources and funds, and the mind starts thinking, and
how can I get more?
Didn't get into it with the intention of, ripping people off or robbing their company blind or something. It's a lot of times it's a crime of opportunity,
right,
or start thinking, or stuff builds up. But there are guys that like you said, that Theranos chick, she was lying from the very beginning, so she knew.
Yeah.
Another example is Sam Bankman-Fried from FTX. I mean, everything that came out of that kid's mouth was a lie, and he practically sunk the whole crypto universe.
Yeah, he did.
So
is that probably trying to gain notoriety type of thing, being the top guy for attention, or for whatever it is he was after? It wasn't just money.
Yeah.
Something like that.
His case is really complicated, because it wasn't just money, but everyone connected to him, his whole family, they're all Democrats, they're all in political positions, and there is evidence that there was a lot of collusion between them, and also not just with that aspect of it, but the way he was running the business. Yeah, he was just lying about a lot of stuff, and just hiring totally unqualified people, and having like a ridiculous corporate culture like they had over at Twitter before Elon took over. Slush funds, code words for just ripping people off completely. Like, it was the most mismanaged exchange in the history of crypto. But I mean, like, it was like not a comedy of errors, but more of just a whole storm of fraud and all kinds of,
It's off topic, but do you think that he started doing the whole thing maybe for political purposes? Like, not so much that, oh, I've got this thing going now so I can feed this, but more like, I'm going to find a way to feed this, so I'm going to do this crypto thing. Like, do you think he had the political thought in mind when he started?
There was definitely some aspect to it, yes, because he made staggering campaign contributions to the Democratic Party, and a lot of other people that a lot of that money was just investors' money, but that they didn't know he was just taking their funds and using it for contributions. I mean, that's illegal. You can't do that,
Right. So I mean, like you're saying, as far as the white collar guys, they're in a position of power, and it's an opportunity thing. Obviously, not necessarily a profit thing, because they're already doing pretty well financially. So is it something to do with maybe the challenge? Because I know with your thing, I think you told me once that I didn't need the money. It was just, I don't know, like
seeing if you could do it,
seeing if you could pull it off, type of thing.
Yeah.
Almost like a puzzle or a challenge.
Well, I wouldn't say I didn't need the money. I wanted the money.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Sure. There is a difference.
and I saw, an opportunity, and looking at everyone else who was making money illegally, I was like, there's too many steps with this. You gotta, do this or that to get money my way. I just make the money.
Right.
All the steps.
Right onto the meat.
That's fucking hilarious. Yeah. I gotta admit, that's pretty funny. It's like, I could take money and buy drugs and then sell drugs to get money, and then it's like, no, dude, I'm just gonna make money.
Make money by doing stuff,
or you can make money.
Exactly.
So I mean, there is a certain like that's what we were saying before we connected with you. Is I was like, you have drug dealers, you have white collar crime, and obviously you have like horrible things like sex offenders and all that. Yeah. And it seems as though they go really hard on white collar crime, especially like when you compare it to drug dealers in a sense.
It's unbelievable, because I mean, being in a courtroom at one point in my life, I saw, people that were in line to get sentenced and whatnot, or, to be arraigned, this, that, and the other. And there's an uttering and publishing charge for a piddly ass little check. And it's a 14-year felony, and they're treating you like you're this menace to society. And then some guy goes up who stabbed somebody in the lung, collapsed their lung and killed him. And he's got a 7-year max. And I'm just like,
like, why do you?
How does that make any sense? He killed this guy.
Like, why do you personally think that is
going to put them away for 14 years, possibly? Like, that's crazy.
Like, why do you think that is exactly?
It's ridiculous. It's a huge disparity in making the crime fit the punishment, of course. But I do think that the criminal justice system is primarily more concerned with financial crime than crime, because violent crime in a way serves a purpose for them, but financial crime, that hits them in the pocket. They want to have a monopoly on finance. Okay.
Right.
And that's why they counterfeit every day. You know what I mean? It's legal when they do it.
Right.
Yeah.
See, that's when I do have a viewpoint like that, where it's like, they're in the business of fraud. They don't want to let you commit fraud.
You can't be stepping on their toes.
That's exactly it. And that'll make more people do it.
Gotta make an example out of you.
And that's why, like in the federal system, for example, financial crimes, the penalties keep increasing with like $100,000. So that's why when you see Enron, like for example, the Enron guys, they got like 20 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I was in prison, one of those Enron guys were still in there. And I think they got busted in like 90, what was it? early mid 90s or something.
Yeah, like 95 or something, maybe.
I was young, so yeah.
So one of those guys was still in there when I was in there, and then and obviously they're looking at millions and millions of dollars. So the more 100,000, it keeps adding up. The penalties keep increasing. So you end up, especially nowadays where financial crimes are easily in the millions, you're always going to end up with a huge sentence because, like I said, I think the system is geared more towards financial crime because, corporations, and government, the criminal justice system are so interwoven, to make examples of people with that because they want to control the monopoly on that.
Yeah, see, my stance on it that some people may not like with our segment of this is that, and I told that one woman this that was in a true crime that I was working through, and she was really offended. I said, in a lot of cases, I barely see a crime. If you're, say, taking something from a corporation that has insurance to cover that money, or good example is you've got a guy who runs a hedge fund. All of the people, and this isn't every case, but all of the people who are investing know damn well that it's something dirty.
Yeah.
When a guy can come to you and you've been investing your whole life, and they come to you and say, I can guarantee you within a year I'll double your money, and after 2 years I'll quadruple it. You know damn well you're buying into something that's at least in a gray area. You're almost not a victim, in my opinion. You kind of got involved in something by proxy where it's kind of like, I'll let him do the dirty work, but yeah, wink, wink, I know something's going on here.
Yeah, but when shit hits the fan,
Whereas with like a sex crime or, whatever, a violent crime or even a robbery, you got real victims in that situation.
Yeah, people whose lives are completely destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's white collar stuff they consider white collar when they're doing schemes or whatever, scams on the phone through like old people and stuff. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
But I just mean that, like you're saying, that the penalties are very steep. And in a lot of instances, I feel like it's a lot of wealthy people just trying to get more wealthy, doing another crooked thing. And the guy who came up with the idea is going to go to prison forever. Meanwhile, the people that were complicit in it and knew better, nothing's happening to them. And poor victims, they lost $100,000, but they're worth 20 million.
Right.
It's like, not really a crime to me.
I'm not really
barely a crime.
I'm shedding tears for you so much.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. and so that's kind of my viewpoint on this, is that in a lot of cases, I don't feel like there's, I don't know. I don't really.
It doesn't seem like there's as concrete of a victim as there is,
right?
In other cases, obviously, where it's like, a family lost a child,
and it doesn't impact the community or society on the level that these other things do.
Right.
Like somebody commits certain acts against a child, that child's probably essentially ruined forever. Their life is, or obviously you take someone's life, or even you break into their home in a violent manner.
Then you're scared.
They're screwed up forever.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you got a guy who does some kind of financial scam where he skims a penny off the dollar from a corporation, or has, you get what I'm saying. To me, it feels kind of
like it's not completely victimless, but it's like,
it's almost along the lines of prostitution, where it's like, really, how is society being hurt here? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
There's insurance to cover these things. There's, these companies aren't losing money in these situations.
Yeah.
All they do is they charge their clientele or whoever a little bit more next quarter because you stole such and such this quarter.
Right.
It's simple.
I agree with you on the part about, that's the mindset for a lot of guys is, well, I'm just, there's no victim here. I'm just, screwing around with an entity, a corporation, insurance anyway. So who cares? You know what I mean? It is a mentality. It's a very popular mentality. It's also criminal behavior. But,
right. For sure. Yeah.
I still, to some extent, that's how I used to feel too. I was like, well, the government or a corporation, who's getting hurt? There is no victim. You know what I mean? It's a faceless entity that has insurance and millions of dollars that they probably stole anyway. So who cares?
And maybe I'm a little bit like the bank robbers back in the 30s and stuff, to where people cheered him on because they hated the banking system because of the depression and everything. Maybe I'm kind of like, I hate these corporations. Maybe I'm a little biased where I'm like, well, because they're always tied in with governmental stuff that's swaying society. And it really bothers me. I'm like, go ahead, take something from them. I don't care. It's kind of like murdering a murderer.
Yeah, like I see that. I totally get that point of view. It's like there's evil corporations like Nestle and Monsanto and brought untold misery to millions of people. So it's like it's hard to feel sorry for a lot of these corporations. I don't condone or espouse.
Right.
Well, right, yeah.
Oh, that's something else I wanted to ask you. Like, and obviously, I'm not saying you particularly. But do you feel like there's an incidence where this may be a righteous reason for the harsh sentencing and everything that they have? I'm just playing devil's advocate. Do you feel like a white collar criminal has a reoffense pattern? Like they say, a sex offender can't stop. They're going to do it their whole life.
They're going to get out and reoffend. Like,
is that the case with white collar guys where it's like, you let them out, they're going to find another scheme. They're not going to, go work a 9 to 5 or whatever.
I'd say it's, from what I've seen, I'd say it's about half.
Yeah.
Half
That's actually not that high.
Yeah.
Half the guys get out and they've learned their lesson.
Right.
Like actual real criminals to begin with, they just kind of like started taking advantage of the situation, got more crooked, taking bribes, this, that, and the other thing. So guys do learn their lesson and don't want to, experience that again.
Yeah.
But some white collar criminals have made it was a lifestyle before, like credit card fraud. Guys that like were literally addicted to credit card fraud because it was so easy for them to do.
Yeah, that dopamine hit.
It's so lucrative, that it was like way better than drug dealing for them. So they were like, it's hard to give that up.
You're usually not going to get murdered over that either. The drug game obviously brings certain worries that you know what I mean. Like it's smarter if you actually have a good plan in place. It is a little more intelligent. Like we just got off the phone with Mike O'Keefe, like setting up the interview with him, and I told you a little bit about him. I guess he actually worked with some cases that involve like upper echelon of white collar crime. Probably he was in homicide a lot, so there's probably a homicide involved with those high stakes and stuff like that. And that's kind of what we're trying to get to the bottom of, is like what he thinks of the psychology of someone and that particular lane of criminology. Like, in other words, do you think that, because a lot of times the white collar guys psychologically have a lot in common with CEOs, have a lot in common with, say, even a quarterback who can stay cool under pressure, think quickly, all those things. All those guys have a high incidence of psychopathy.
Yeah.
High percentage. Do you think a lot of the guys that you encountered who are locked up for some of the bigger schemes and stuff, do you think they're a little bit psychopathic? Do you think they're a little bit unfeeling, a little bit narcissistic, all those different traits?
Yeah, some of them for sure. Yeah. I wouldn't say the majority of them. There's definitely an element of, some of these people are sociopaths. I wouldn't say I've encountered, any like psychopaths. I've encountered some criminals that have psychopathic tendencies.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
I wasn't aware of meeting any actual psychopaths, but some definitely, killed people, ruthlessly and stuff like that. But
so more so than that, psychological breakdown that like true crime podcasters and everybody wants to do nowadays, you're saying that a lot of it is just good old fashioned greed. And maybe there's some narcissism with the power thing, but I mean, to be honest, anyone who's successful in anything has a certain level of narcissism. Like, so you have to in a lot of fields. Like, so yeah, I mean, I can see that the greed, and like you said, it's opportunity.
Yeah.
But then again, it isn't that different, because like people in different kinds of crime, their opportunity is different. So, you know, maybe if you took that guy who's dealing cocaine or whatever, you know, started on street level, if you would have put him in a different background, a different situation, he might have been the guy that was, you know, finding a way to get money out of his college, you know, the fundraising, you know, money or whatever. So I can kind of see that the greed is.
Yeah, and it comes down to like what, you know, you had said before about like, you know, it wasn't that you needed the money, it's that you wanted it. And so it's like those people go through that and think like, well, you know, I don't necessarily need to do this, but I have done it and I can push the envelope, so I want to try. Why not? What have I got to lose?
I mean, me personally, I would probably like the challenge aspect of it.
Right.
And I do think I'm a little of an antisocial personality. We were joking, kind of joking, but not really. I was like, wow, Adam's kind of an antisocial personality guy. I was like, you know, the whole against the government thing, you know, the white collar thing, the extreme kidnapping thing is actually, you know, off of the norm. And I'm the same way. Like everything I want to do is not antisocial in the way to where it's like dangerous to people. I mean, where you the society, the rat race, all that stuff just doesn't interest you. It's like I don't want to be conform to this. You know what I mean?
It's a unique blending of anarchism and capitalism. It's called I can never say the word, but Jeff Berwick, check out Jeff Berwick. He pretty much pioneered the whole thing as far as I'm concerned.
It's dude, that's exactly what it is. It's a combination of anarchy and capitalism.
For sure.
It's like a fusion. And yeah.
Capitalism.
I think it's foundational, you know, what it's built on is like the non-aggression principle. But they consider taxation theft and they're all for capitalism, but you know, they're more about freedom, you know, freedom of choice, freedom of speech, freedom of everything.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's something to check out too. But yeah, I agree with you with that. Pretty much how I am, and you're pretty much like that too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it like, well, maybe it is a bad thing, but I'm saying I identify with it. And, you know, I have certain moral values. They're really important to me. But I'm not hell bent on, even if I had the platform, convincing the rest of the country to feel and think the way that I do so that we all live in harmony. No, go off and live in your own harmony.
I'm going to waste my time
away from me. Preferably somewhere else.
Keep your shit away from me.
If you're a Mormon, stay over there in Utah. Like have your own commune, man. I don't care, but just don't bother me. Don't tread on me.
Shove that down my throat.
Right, don't tread on me.
We had a lot of like bourbon late night talks about some of this stuff over some Evan or whatever it was. Do you feel that even though they weren't violent offenders necessarily, that some of the guys that you were locked up with who were maybe lifelong white collar, had never been involved in nothing else, do you think that they were equally dangerous to criminals of other types? Like, do you think that they would? No, I don't think so. Most white collar guys most of them are generally pretty smart, you know, and if they were dedicated to like white collar crime, and I kind of like back when documents were still, people used paper for everything, like real estate deeds and, you know, stocks and bonds and, you know, things like that. Everything was on paper. There was a class of white collar criminals that did all kinds of stuff rooted and based in paper scams, you know? And once, you know, the internet came into play and everything migrated to, you know, email and all this stuff, all digital record,
a lot of those guys kind of like migrated to hacking, cracking, and carding, you know, because everything's digital now. So, you know, now those guys traded in their briefcases and paper and, you know, laser printers for, you know, a computer and a laptop and a cell phone, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of different white collar crime. Most people traditionally think of it as, you know, an executive or a CEO at a big company who's just, you know, stealing or, you know, or some stock investment guy that's ripping people off like Bernie Madoff. who was huge, by the way. I mean, now like a guy like him,
I admire his success.
well, here's the thing about him though, is like we were talking about before about how financial crimes don't really hurt people. His financial crimes hurt people, like actual people. Like
actual people he proclaimed to care about. That was a big problem to me.
Like a lot of people lost their life savings with that guy.
Yeah, that disgusting.
Suicide because of that guy. Sure. You know what I mean? So like, there are financial criminals that have done, you know, a financial crime that was so, you know, so large that it actually impacted real people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He suicides and homelessness.
He's what you're saying, where it was kind of like he couldn't stop.
Yeah.
There's no reason he had to go as far with it as he did.
Right.
He could have stopped 20% of the way into that, gone off somewhere. You know what I mean? But he was like addicted to it. It seems like he's addicted to like the rush.
Yeah, there's some people like that too, that they, you know, they got all the money they need or will ever need, but they can't stop doing it because they're just addicted to it, you know?
He did have a weird complex, didn't he? Like where he was around all these rich people, he wasn't well off that way, so maybe he didn't feel as guilty taken from them. Because I remember he kind of just like implanted himself in their lives at the beginning through like a country club or something. And he he didn't come from the background that they did necessarily. He wasn't, I don't think he's poor as a kid or anything, but he wasn't on their level financially. So maybe there was a little something there where, I don't know, he felt like he's getting even. Like he felt like, well, screw them, you know?
Yeah, I don't know too much about his background history.
I watched a few things on it, but that, like, she knows that like I'm so busy with work and stuff like that. I don't remember half the shit I watch.
Yeah,
I fall asleep halfway through.
As far as he goes, you know, he's one that, like you said, you know, some of his crimes really did actually damage very real people. So he is one that I look at like, wow, man, you know, like you really did hurt some people.
Yeah,
like your crimes are not victimless completely, buddy.
No,
sure,
and you could argue that someone like him has done more damage to people than like a Jeffrey Dahmer. Like he could literally have more lives ended, or at least in complete misery based on their lifestyle, everything being taken.
Everything they have, you know, going into poverty and homelessness.
Yeah, I guess what I was trying to get at when I was asking you about motives is what's her name? The
Elizabeth Holmes.
Elizabeth Holmes. She's a good example of, she could have been a very successful doctor, research biologist, any of these things. That wasn't good enough for her. So is there kind of a complex with a lot of these people where it's like, I want to be the guy, I want to be the top, like basically notoriety or whatever other term you'd want to use, like notoriety essentially.
I hate using
I don't think there's a whole lot of those people. I think they're probably the exception, you know, because I don't think, like, if you really look at her case, I mean, she, you know, it's fraud from top to bottom, you know what I mean?
100%, the whole way through. Yeah, that's the problem. It's like she could have just done good things.
Yeah, she was intelligent enough to be successful.
You know, and done things right. She could have eventually maybe had some great, you know, things to add to the medical community, but she was a complete.
And what that reminds me of is guys like Michael Franzese or all these mob guys, where in every documentary you hear, man, he could have ran any Fortune 500 company as a CEO,
right?
But he chose to do this instead.
Yeah.
And it is interesting. Maybe it's that rush that you know.
Well, I think in a lot of cases, especially environment plays a role, because, you know, like his environment, that's where he grew up around, is those type of people. You know what I mean? Or, you know, was the main guy. You know what I mean? So at that time, so like if he was removed from that environment, yeah, maybe he could have ran a company. But being in the environment that he was and surrounded by the people that he was surrounded by, this makes sense. That's what he's going to fall into.
Absolutely.
And he was very successful at it, you know? Right. So environment does play a role in a lot of these situations, but it's not exclusive. It's not, you can't point to environment as the sole cause or factor but it is a contributing factor.
Yeah, likewise with her, it's kind of like if you really look at it, you'd almost think that she's further on the evil scale because she had the opportunity to do plenty of other things that weren't fraudulent, that weren't quote unquote evil, but she didn't. Whereas, like you said, like a Franzese or somebody really didn't have the opportunity to be a CEO of a major corporation.
Well, yeah.
He did go to college, but you know, it's kind of a front.
Right.
It wasn't as though he. So yeah, that's definitely it's interesting to me, and like part of what I said, you gave us part of what I was going to talk about in our separate part of the segment is I think there is something to an intelligence level where, you know, somebody who's in what they'd call a white collar criminal racket or whatever it is simply skipping the steps of certain danger. You know, if you decide to be a drug dealer, you know, your first 8-ball can put you away for like 10 years.
Or put you in the ground.
First time or put you in the ground. First time you make a deal, you never even had a chance to see if your plan worked. You know, whereas that's normally not the case with people with more, you know, I think that there is an intelligence difference there, not just environment, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely, to do those types of crimes. It does. It really does.
It's a lot safer.
Yeah, it's a lot safer.
Yeah.
And by intelligence, I actually mean like common sense, like rather than putting yourself in danger, you know. The only danger you had, for instance, was honestly the people that were in your circle.
Right, which is always
and like you
risk,
said in the short, there's always a snitch.
Always
there's always a rat.
Yeah.
You know, do you keep in contact with any of these guys you were locked up with? I never really asked you that before.
I've kept in contact with some of my cellies.
Yeah.
But nobody else. Just the good cellies, because I had some really good cellies, and they were really good guys. And yeah, I made contact with maintained contact with, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Damn.
When I first got out, I was probably still talking to about five of these guys. But over years, lost track of some of them. But I talked to one of them fairly regularly, and he's worked for me. In fact, after we both got out.
Oh, cool.
Oh, like that's what I was going to ask you, because like we've talked to Herc, and I find a lot of motivation in some of these guys. Have at least the guys you've kept in contact with, some of them really turned their lives around and kind of stayed away from, like you said, like a lot of them learned their lesson.
Right.
Have they gone on to be successful, like, you know, and
or at least leading just a normal life, you know?
Just lead a normal life. Yeah, like some of the guys were already successful when they went in, and they're back out, and they're, you know, they just picked up where they left off, not necessarily with crime,
right?
Assets, and already had millions of dollars anyway that was not even related to their crimes.
Right.
Fine. But some of the other guys that I kept in contact with went on to get out, and like she said, lead normal lives and get out.
It was my God's honest that I was all about a non-violent approach, but it seems truth is a non-topic.